welcome to episode 10 of Eye on Horror. This is the big 1-0 for us. We hit double digits. I'm your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is Jacob Davison. How you doing?
Doing good and happy to be here yet again.
You're always happy to be here.
I am. I genuinely am happy to be here again, and I say it every time.
Also, happy to be here, I hope, is our other host, Jonathan Correa. I know he's in L.A. Are you happy to be here and in L.A., Jonathan?
Yeah, always happy to be here. I mean, our schedules haven't lined up for the most part over the last few weeks, as our viewers have witnessed. But you know what? I'm glad to be back into it, back home, and back to talking about horror with you guys. We
do need to apologize. Not only was our last Jurassic Park episode really long-winded, we hope you guys enjoyed it, but we've been a little inconsistent on getting the stuff out. That one, we really have no excuse other than misunderstanding and miscommunication on that one. But we're also going to, I think we're going to start launching these on Mondays instead of Fridays.
Yep.
Which hopefully will work out a little bit better for getting them to your guys' ear holes. For the, 10 or 12 of you that listen. I know that my mom listens. Korea's girlfriend listens. Our editor, Tim, listens.
Yeah, number one fan right there, Tim.
I got some college buddies who listen.
There you go. Yeah, maybe 10 or 12.
Yeah, welcome to episode 10, where we list all the people that listen to our podcast. Shout out to those in the mezzanine.
We count them on both hands. Woohoo! All right, let's get rolling. What has happened news-wise?
News-wise, there's been a few interesting things that have come out. First thing is Robert Englund was interviewed for the press tour for the upcoming AMC docuseries History of Horror, and he actually has a really good idea for a Nightmare on Elm Street, possible reboot, where he says that he would like to have different actors play Freddy for each potential victim. As he says, quote, because he is only alive in the imagination of his future victim. They would talk about it at a supper party or at a locker room in a, school or a bus going home. We all know this about Freddy, is that he wears a hat, has a red and green striped sweater, and a clawed hand. That's the specifics. And that's the end of the quote for there. But I think that's an interesting concept. I mean, we've seen different people play Freddy. Even in the first one, you had the little girl with the pigtails. Not little girl, the teenage girl with the pigtails for that.
Oh, yeah, the hall monitor.
Yeah, the hall monitor.
Where's your pass?
Your pass, bitch. But so I think it's an interesting concept. I think also it would kind of lose because you kind of need to have that one person be Freddy. Imagine how different it would be if Freddy was always played by someone different. And we didn't always have Robert Englund's charisma behind it.
But the thing about that is, at least in the movies, particularly the early ones, it was a big deal that they were all dreaming about the same creep. So it'll be interesting to see how, because I understand, that the rationale behind it, it's like, okay, everybody is going to picture him differently. But what made those first Nightmare on Elm Street movies really weird, what it made them really fantastical is the fact that these people who had never seen Freddy before all dreamt of the same Freddy. So, it is an interesting concept on paper, and I would love to see how they try to pull it off, but the jury's still out on it for me.
I think, honestly, I'm pretty much down for it, just because, I feel like it would really fit into the kind of dream logic, and there's definitely a lot of fun ways that it can be done. And it'd be interesting to see what roster of actors they would get to play Freddy for different scenes, because it would make room for a lot of interesting cameos. Like maybe they could get Kane Hodder to play Freddy for one scene. But honestly, I think it's a cool idea, and it would be interesting to see if Englund wrote and directed it. I mean, he did do 976 Evil.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to see Brad Dourif take a crack at one episode of that. I want to see him play Freddy for one episode.
Oh. My only thing with that, though, is we're talking about it how everyone imagines him differently. Freddy's not an imagination. He is a being. He is...
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a dream demon, but...
I think he meant, just kind of, it's like more seeing it as like a ghost or an urban legend, because like one person's interpretation of the Hook hand legend is different from the other. It's like Candyman. Like there are all the different legends about Candyman.
Right. I don't know. I think it would just be interesting to see a completely new, IP that would be kind of like a dream demon that does take different forms and stuff, and maybe not have it be Freddy.
Yeah.
Allow for some original content out there that's kind of rip-offy,
Kind of rip-off.
Kind of.
In other news, the cast for Dr. Sleep is being filled out, and they've cast their Wendy Torrance. They've got Alex Esso, who was in Starry Eyes.
Ooh.
Way back when. You guys remember that?
Oh yeah,
of course.
She is the Wendy Torrance, which is interesting because Ewan McGregor is Danny Torrance, and it almost seems to me. I mean, I haven't read Dr. Sleep, so maybe this makes perfect sense, but it seems like Ewan McGregor is older than Alex Esso, so is there like a flashback to Wendy Torrance? I'm really asking because I haven't read Dr. Sleep. I have ultimate faith in Mike Flanagan, who is really, on Twitter, he's expressed how happy he is to be working with Alex Esso as Wendy Torrance, so it's shaping up, and like I said, I have ultimate faith in Mike Flanagan. So whatever he's doing, I'm sure it's going to be great.
I hope so, at least.
And going off of Ewan McGregor, who was the lead in Fargo last season, they just announced the fourth season of Fargo today, and this one's going to star Chris Rock. So it's going to be with Noah Hawley again, and it sounds like production is going to be starting in 2019. It's going to be interesting because it's not even really near Fargo, North Dakota this time. It's set in Kansas City, Missouri, and it follows Chris Rock as the leader of a group of gangsters, and about kind of like a rising tension between his group, which are made up of African Americans, and a rival mafia of Italians, and dealing with themes of immigration, assimilation, and the things people do for money. So very typical to Fargo as a series.
Is it going to be modern day?
No, it's going to be set in 1950.
Okay, that makes a little more sense than... was Fargo set in the other episodes or the other seasons? Was it set in the 90s or was it set in present day?
Well, that's the thing. Each season takes place in a different time. Like, first season was the mid-2000s, second season was the 1970s, last season was like 2010, 2011, so it goes all over the place.
They American Horror Story.
Yeah, they bounce around.
Have you guys seen, and this is, for me personally, this is a strike against it, but have you guys seen they announced the running time for the Suspiria remake?
Oh. And
it's 2 hours and 35 freaking minutes. An entire hour longer than the original. The ADD kid in me is freaking out right now. I'm like, am I really going to sit there? I mean, granted, Blade Runner 2049 was the briskest 2 hours and 43 I have ever seen. One of my favorite movies of all time, Boogie Nights, is 2:45. So it's not a deal breaker for me.
Right.
But you have to ask yourself, how much more are they going to do? And a lot of people are excited that it's 2 hours and 35 minutes. I'm like, no, you can at least do the Tarantino thing and put up an intermission in the middle so people can hit the potty and, fill up their soda.
No, that's part of the experience, is sitting there with a full bladder and you're just anxious, and they just keep bombarding you with colorful or not colorful imagery. Sorry to the colorist for the new Suspiria. We all know that you guys don't have much color in it, but maybe it's just they're just bombarding you for the last hour so that your bladder's just throbbing by the end.
And then the Tom York score hits the brown note, and the entire theater is. Oh yeah, that was bad.
I'm glad I don't work in theaters for that one. But.
Gross.
All right. Now,
what else we got news-wise?
Now, I'm going to put up a disclaimer. This is probably one of the closest that Ion Horror will get to being political. We're not going to go into politics with it, but I think it's worth mentioning, especially since we do have a Bigfoot expert on as one of our hosts. But apparently, a Virginia congressional runner is being accused of being into Bigfoot-themed erotica. Denver Riggleman is a candidate for Congress in Virginia, and he's going back and forth against one of his opponents, Leslie Cockburn, and they're both sending out like pretty radical accusations. He's saying she's anti-Semitic. She's saying that he has ties to white nationalists. And then in a tweet the other day, she not only mentioned all that, but she also brought up the fact that he once on Instagram shared a photo of a naked Sasquatch with a very big penis. It looks like it's hard to tell because it's a very big censored bar on it, but he seems to be shrugging. He did share this. He now claims that it was a joke and then lashed out. Oh, you just don't get my sense of humor. But
famous last words. Just ask James Gunn.
Yeah.
Oh, right. There's no sense of humor when it comes to social media.
Well, yeah, that's touchier, but. I just want to highlight that we now live in a political landscape where politicians are being accused of being into Bigfoot erotica, which we here at iHorror are not kink shamers. We will never shame anybody for being into consensual acts of whatever with adults. That's cool. And if you're into Bigfoot erotica, hey, man, that's your thing. You do you. But it's just funny that that's coming up. And I'm just glad Bigfoot's in any way is a part of the mainstream news cycle right now, especially for
Bigfoot's been kind of silent lately. I figure he's just laying low until the heat goes down.
Just real quick, although I think I can probably guess, is this candidate, the Bigfoot one, is he Republican or Democrat?
Yeah, he's a Republican.
Yes, he's
a Republican. Okay, so his opponent, who is accused of being anti-Semitic, is the Democrat.
Yes.
Right. And she's only being accused of that because she wrote a book about the United States-Israel relationship.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's... I can't make comments about that. I haven't read the book. I don't know anything about that. All I know is I'm looking at the Instagram photo right now.
Yeah, and that is a huge censor bar.
That is a very big censor bar, which... it makes sense. You know what they say about big feet. Right?
Let's just let the record show that Korea will not read a book about the U.S.-Israeli relations, but he will look at an Instagram post with a censored Bigfoot penis.
Yes. This comment will make my family very proud. I will not read books, but I will gander at Bigfoot erotica.
And on that note, I actually, if we're talking about stuff that we've recently seen, I'd like to talk about a Bigfoot movie I saw recently.
Yes, please do
Let's
tell.
Do it.
Okay. So I found this movie by chance, mostly because I'm a big fan of the bonkers horror movie Demon Wind, and this one had a similar title, Demon Warp, and it is one of the most bonkers movies I've seen all year. It's from '88, and it stars none other than the great George Kennedy. So it's about George Kennedy, who's out in Demonwood Forest. That's the actual name of the place. And his daughter is abducted.
Why does anybody go to Demonwood Forest?
That doesn't sound ominous at all.
You run the opposite direction from Demonwood Forest.
It's very rustic. It's a nice vacation spot. It's only a name. Except his daughter does get kidnapped by Bigfoot, and George Kennedy gets his ass whooped by Bigfoot. And
I guess people did go to Hell House, so we can't blame them for going to Demonwood Forest.
Yeah.
Oh, but it gets even crazier, man. Okay, so... and then these, 20-somethings come down because this dude's uncle was also abducted by Bigfoot, so he's trying to find him. But then they go after him, and it turns out that Bigfoot is working for an alien that crash landed in Demonwood Forest 100 years ago and is worshipped by this satanic cultist guy because the alien needs slaves to rebuild his spaceship, so he's killing anybody in the woods so he can turn them into his zombies that he controls so that he can rebuild his spaceship. And oh my god, it is so bonkers and amazing, and I love it.
This sounds like either the most meticulously plotted story ever written or something the director made up as he went along. But there's no middle ground.
I assume the latter, but it's still a fun time. And there's actually a fun kind of behind-the-scenes story thing with it. The movie was originally written and directed by John Carl Bucher, who actually left the project so that he could do Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. And to be honest, he probably made the better choice. But it is fun, because it is apparently his brainchild, just because he wanted to do a movie with like a whole bunch of monsters and crazy special effects and stuff. And for the most part, it's pretty entertaining.
And I do have to say this, because since Jacob's been talking, I looked it up on IMDb, and he has shared this picture before. We'll share it on our Facebook page, but the poster for Demon Warp is incredible. I'm not saying anything more. Just Google it, go to our Facebook page, look at it, just soak it in. Maybe make it a mural on your van or on the roof of your room, on the ceiling of your room. But this is beautiful. There's Sasquatch, aliens, spaceships, George Kennedy with an axe. It's got everything.
Everything that Jacob just described is on that poster.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But no censor bar over the Bigfoot, so won't appeal to everybody.
I'm not sure if it would be scarier or funnier if the antagonist Bigfoot also had a giant dick.
That's a different movie.
For some, it would be very terrifying. For others,
it brings new meaning to the term Demonwood.
man.
I'll be here all week. Try the veal. All right. What do we got? Any other news, or this might be a good segue into stuff we've seen?
Yeah. Well, I haven't been out to the theater except to see Sorry to Bother You, which if this is actually one of the few times where all three of us have seen something. I'm usually the one holding out. Now, I will say this: if you have it playing in your local theater, please go out and see it. It's a great film.
Absolutely.
Support indie cinema.
We don't want to spoil anything for it because let's put it this way: the trailer basically just covers like the first 20 minutes, maybe, and it's a great ride.
It completely misrepresents what the movie actually is. I'm worried that this movie is not going to find its audience, because the people who see that trailer are not who are going to appreciate this movie, and the people who will appreciate movies like this are not going to see it from that damn trailer. So just open your mind, go see Sorry to Bother You, because you may love it, you may hate it, but you will not stop thinking about it.
Let's just say this: genre fans will not be disappointed.
Yeah.
With some of the elements.
There's a reason why we're talking about it on a horror podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not traditional horror, but it goes places.
I don't know, dude. That beginning with the call center, that was some PTSD for me. I used to work in call centers, and that was disturbingly accurate. Like the whole him dropping into people's houses, his third call being a woman just breaking down and crying almost immediately, spilling out her life and being traumatic. That is horrifyingly accurate.
Yikes.
For anyone who's ever worked in a call center. Like, I've had those calls on a daily basis. So kudos to you, Boots, for making me relive those terrible life moments.
Again, without going into it too much, like, honestly, the more blind you are going in, the better. But I think a friend of mine summed it up best that Sorry to Bother You is this generation's They Live.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's not wrong.
I can see that.
Yeah.
No 10-minute fight scene, but yeah.
What else have we seen? I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot of horror that has come out. I mean, there have been some dark movies. I saw The Darkest Minds, which opens actually the day we're recording this. It's bad. It is,
really?
It's condescending. It's the kind of movie that, like, it spoon feeds it gives its audience no credit. It's really bad. It's trying to step into that Hunger Games Divergent void that, the young adults need their movie, and it's failing miserably. It's not cool. And then I saw Christopher Robin, which is also not good and also not horror, but it is also, for a Winnie the Pooh movie, is very dark. But, and then I saw a French movie called Custody, which is just real quick, because it's weird, because the director, his name's Xavier Legrand. He says his three influences for it were Kramer versus Kramer, The Night of the Hunter, and The Shining. And it goes through these three stages. The first act is completely Kramer versus Kramer. There's a custody battle between the parents for the kids. Night of the Hunter, it goes there in the second act when it, the parents are kind of using the kids against each other. And then the third act goes full The Shining. And that's all I'll say. It's not a horror movie, again, so we won't spend too much time on it, but it does go to some dark places.
Nice.
Damn. As for me, yeah, not too many horror releases out, but I did see the new Mission Impossible movie, Fallout. And even though it's not really horror, I will say it does have a death scene that is like just pure, like, over the top Final Destination levels. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, there's some pretty crazy deaths in that one.
Just tell me that Henry Cavill reloading his arms. Tell me that sound effect is in the finished movie.
Reloading his arms?
You know, when they're fighting that
when he's
bathroom
doing that
scene
thing where he's like limbering up his arms. Yeah, he does that a lot, man.
Well,
yes.
Yeah, but in the trailer there's a sound effect like he's cocking a gun. Is that sound effect in the finished movie?
I don't really remember. I mean, I just remember, like, he did that every time he'd fight. Like, he'd just fucking, like pull up his jacked up arms and, like, limbered up like Popeye.
It's the wind-up.
I don't think you understand how excited I am for that. It's part of the reason why I currently have a mustache right now.
So they can be digitally removed later.
I finally watched Justice League. We'll go on too long if I start.
I actually got sucked into it on HBO the other night as well. It was a second watch for me, yeah, let's not go into it.
No.
Yeah. But aside from that, though, I will be seeing some pretty cool genre revivals coming up because American Cinematheque is doing a 3D series. So tonight they're screening Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D with Larry Zerner, a.k.a. Shelley.
Nice.
And then tomorrow night they're doing something really crazy. They're doing a 3D shark triple feature with pre-screening of The Meg, Jaws 3D in 3D, and Deep Blue Sea, non-3D, but in Jackson Vision.
Jackson Vision.
Well, I think that was just a joke that it's not in 3D, it's 2D, but it does have Samuel Jackson.
That is true. They should have called it motherfucking Vision.
Yeah. We talked on Jurassic Park about my favorite on-screen deaths, and I said the lawyer from Jurassic Park. Well, a close second, and possibly on some days pulling ahead of the lawyer in Jurassic Park, would be, spoiler alert, Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea. Because it is the genius. If you haven't seen it, now you know Samuel L. Jackson dies, but it's still worth watching.
Yeah, and I didn't see it when it came out in theaters, but I'm sure it must have come as a big gut punch at the time, just because Samuel Jackson was so huge and, you know, like, he was top billed, so you didn't expect him to go out like that.
Yep. Speaking of revival screenings, tomorrow night here in San Diego, which by the time this posts, it will have happened, I'm seeing a midnight screening of Liquid Sky.
Oh, shit.
Which, even though I have that was Vinegar Syndrome, put that out, right?
Vinegar Syndrome.
Even though I have the Vinegar Syndrome release of it, I have not cracked it open yet, and I have never seen Liquid Sky.
Oh,
so
boy.
The first time I see it is going to be on a big screen at midnight.
Man, you are in for a trip.
I would still, I'll trade you for your Meg, Jaws 3D, Deep Blue Sea triple feature.
Well, I'm in for this.
It's going to be cool to see Liquid Sky for a first time on a big screen.
Actually, speaking of Vinegar Syndrome, I did want to talk about, I actually visited the home base of Vinegar Syndrome while I was back east in Connecticut, which they call the Archive in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And let me just say, it is the Willy Wonka of genre video stores. Because, like, it's not just, you know, like, it's where they make their Blu-rays and DVDs and stuff. They actually own a store where they sell, like, everything. Like, they've got their own label, they've got Scream Factory, they've got Arrow, they've got Umbrella, they've got every label, Warner Archive. And so, like, if you want it, you can get it there without having to order online. And, like, the selection is astounding. Like, while I was there, I got the Doom Asylum from Arrow Video, a French import of the Spookies called Les Spookies, although it's in English.
Because what else would it be called? A French import of the Spookies.
Yeah, although it's all region and it's English, so it's cool. And let's see, I got Vinegar Syndrome's own Blu-ray release of Horror House on Highway 5, and this was the creme de la creme. I found a DVD copy of the out-of-print George A. Romero's Martin on DVD. It was so cool because they had, like, just the whole selection of Blu-rays and DVDs. They had a VHS section. They had records, posters, memorabilia, and they even had free-to-play arcade games, including one of my personal favorites, Carn Evil. You know, the one where you're in the carnival with, like, the killer zombie clowns and stuff. Love that one. Played it all the time back at my old hometown movie theater. But yeah, and just they had a really friendly staff, and it was just such a great selection. So if you ever find yourselves around Bridgeport, Connecticut, please go visit the Archive in Connecticut, because it is a genre collector's paradise.
Yeah, well, let's move on. Do we got a subgenre?
Yep, and with the release of the Meg coming up, and with summer winding down, I figured now would be a great time to talk sharks.
Shark movies.
Yeah.
Isn't it Shark Week right now?
It is also Shark Week.
At the time of this recording,
Well,
it's Shark Week.
But either way, just sharks really became a staple of pop culture through the horror genre, with most evidently with the classic Jaws. But since then, there have been so many mockbusters and movies trying to ape off of that, or trying to do their own thing with sharks. Like there was all those direct-to-video Shark Attack movies. There was 47 Meters Down like a year ago.
The Sharktopus movies.
Oh yeah, there's Sharktopus,
as well as the Sharknado movies.
And don't forget those 2-headed then 3-headed Shark Attack movies. A lot of Asylum films.
Don't forget Lava Shark, Sand Sharks.
My favorite was Ghost Shark.
Ghost Shark, yeah.
Ghost Shark.
Oh my god, I love Ghost Shark.
Someone joked about Shark-a-Lanch, and the tagline was, "Snow is frozen water. The science is real."
Legit.
But I was gonna say, I think somebody actually did a Shark-a-Lanch movie since that joke was made. They'll do anything.
I'm pretty sure they did. But yeah, so Jaws, just to go off with the classic and the progenitor, pretty much, Jaws will always have a special place in my heart, because it's definitely one of my all-time favorite movies. I always make a habit of seeing it at least one time in theaters a year. I got to see it at the Egyptian last month, so I was pretty happy about that. And also, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I'd go to Martha's Vineyard where they shot the movie, so it was always cool, kind of going at the locations. And also every time I'd go there, I'd go to the beach where there's the bridge going into the lake, and everybody would jump off into the water, and that's where the shark nearly ate Brody's kid. And so it was funny, like sometimes people would like bring boomboxes and play the Jaws theme while people were jumping off, just to tempt fate, as it were, because there have actually been a number of sharks, great whites, off the coast of Martha's Vineyard too. But the funny thing is that for, being the setting of a movie about a shark ruining tourism, there's so much tourism because they shot Jaws there now.
Yeah.
Until an actual shark comes out. And then...
Well, no, I mean, there's been plenty there, and, it's never going to stop tourism from coming. Now sharks are a business staple. Go figure.
Well, there was also that video of the Boston fisherman catching a shark.
Oh, yeah,
and a bunch of baby sharks. Which I was just like, just put it fucking back. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop standing there like a, and then my accent came out really hard. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop standing there like a fucking mook and put it back in the fucking water, guy.
Yeah, and as a more serious aside, it is unfortunate that these movies kind of turn people against sharks, because for the most part, sharks are fairly harmless and rarely attack people. People die more from falling vending machines than they do shark attacks.
It's understandable. I mean, you got to get your chips.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys have any favorite shark movies? My
favorite shark movie, and I know we've talked about it before when I think we were doing vacation movies, but The Shallows.
Ah, yeah.
Is and it sounds like such a simple movie. Blake Lively surfing this secluded spot, gets stuck on a reef by a giant shark who's just kind of swimming around, and the tide starts coming in, so her little piece of rock gets smaller and smaller. But it's basically a one-woman show. She's stuck on there with a seagull, Steven Seagal, who kind of acts as her sounding board, so she's not talking to herself the whole time. But honestly, she should have been at least nominated for an Oscar for that, because she carries the entire movie on her shoulders. And that's a favorite of mine, and it's only a couple years old. It's funny because at the time, I loved the whole movie except for the very ending. I'm talking the moment she defeats the shark. But the more that I watch it, because it's also
Spoilers.
a pretty quick... It's a Dude, Blake Lively, of course, is going to defeat a shark. It's not like Samuel L. Jackson. You can't kill Blake Lively. But it's also a quick movie. It's like 80 minutes long, so you can, bust right through it. So I probably watched it 10 times. And every time I see that ending, and I don't know if it's just, the corniness and campiness in me, but that ending is growing on me. Right. It's not as stupid as it was when I first saw it. Or it is. I'm just living with the stupidity, maybe.
Now, I would have to say, it's hard for me. I'll be honest. I haven't watched that many shark movies. I only saw Jaws in its entirety like a few years ago. Got into the Jaws sequels, which if you follow us on Stardust, I have a lot of things said on that platform about the Jaws sequels, except for the Revenge. I still haven't brought myself to that point. But... I don't know if this is cheating, but for me, my favorite shark movie would have to be Zombie, a.k.a. Zombie 2, a.k.a. Zombie Flesh Eaters. I mean, it's not a whole movie about sharks, but it does have that one amazing scene where that woman is scuba diving with no top for some reason. And then you see a zombie underwater, and a shark comes up and takes a bite out of the zombie, and the zombie takes a bite out of the shark, and the shark goes, fuck this, and swims off. And it's one of the greatest moments of, what? Like, you could totally tell that they were like, oh, wow, people really like Jaws, so let's put a shark in here. And it's like, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's have a zombie fight the shark. So
yeah, I mean, it was a bit more extended than that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spoil too much of it.
Oh, right. Yeah, it is a highlight of the film. Like that,
yes.
Most definitely.
Probably says more about the movie itself than the scene, though.
That's very true.
But yeah, that's a classic scene.
It's a great movie, but that's definitely a highlight scene. I even still have my Fright Rags T-shirt, the baseball tee with the scene.
The thing about that Jaws did is it didn't just usher in shark movies. It created an entire genre of the man versus nature. They basically were cookie cutter clones of sharks that just weren't sharks. Like there was orca,
barracuda,
tentacles. Yeah, barracuda is another. But even grizzly, which... that's Jaws on land, right down to
Jaws with claws.
Did you just make that up, or is that actually what it's called?
I think that was the tagline.
Oh, okay.
Or it was or it was one of the reviews for the Anthony Hopkins one with Baldwin, The Edge, I think it was called.
Yeah. But yeah, though, that was the thing. Jaws was so huge that everybody wanted to get in on the animal attack movie.
Yeah. And Grizzly and Orca, these were like maybe 76, so they weren't that long after Jaws. So they definitely struck while the iron was hot on that because Jaws itself, it was terrifying because it was real. I should say it is terrifying because it is real. These aren't just, ghosts or vampires or werewolves we're dealing with. This is a shark. Although you say more people are killed by vending machines than sharks, but this could happen. There's an element of realism to it. And that's why people were afraid, they say, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, it scared people away.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. I talked to my mom, who saw Jaws in theaters, and it was, so big in the 70s that it made so many people afraid to go in the water that summer just because sharks could attack at any moment.
Which is still an irrational fear. It's like, oh, I'm terrified of sharks. It's like, okay, then don't go in the ocean. It's like, so easy to avoid.
The mid-70s, the same era that gave us that rash of killer bee movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was another one of those irrational fears. It's like, okay, yeah, there are killer bees, Africanized honeybees coming up from South America, but they don't actually behave like they do in these damn movies. There's a little bit of dramatic license, but...
Oh, no doubt.
People were... I was terrified of killer bees. And I remember when I found out killer bees were a real thing, I was probably like 8, and I freaked out. I'm like, are you... What? Huh? And they're on their way to America? What? Please don't... because the big thing was they thought that they wouldn't cross the Amazon, and they did. And then they're like, oh, but they won't cross the Panama Canal. But that's what they said about the Amazon River. These bees are coming. This little 8-year-old Jay is freaking out over these killer bees.
No, I actually had the same thing because that was still going on in the 90s. And when I was a kid, you'd hear these reports of like, oh, they found a nest of killer bees in this old abandoned house. It's like, oh no, the killer bees are coming.
They actually started showing up around the 90s.
Yeah.
The 70s, they were just making their way up. But yeah, they did cross the Panama Canal, and they have started showing up in like Texas and New Mexico.
And now bees are going extinct, and we need killer bees.
Yeah. I don't know if we need killer bees, but we need more bees.
Yeah.
We need nice bees.
And just another one, though, since, talking about the Meg and Megalodon, all that coming up. Have either of you seen the full movie or clips from Shark Attack 3 Megalodon?
Yeah, the one where it jumps out of the water and eats the jet ski.
Yeah. Oh my god, that movie's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And also, like, that dude steals a woman's life vest and he jumps into the water, but he jumps right into the shark's mouth.
And it's total just, like, stock footage from, like, Shark
superimposed.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Terrible green screen.
What movie was it where I think a shark jumps in the air and eats an airplane?
I think that was Mega Shark versus the Giant Octopus.
Yes.
Okay, one of the Asylum Mega Shark movies.
Yeah, and like the dude's looking out the window is like, holy shit! And then,
Yeah.
So let's move on from sharks and move on to our topic. You want to introduce our topic, Korea?
Yes. So in recent times, I was thinking about prequels. I mean, love them, hate them, they're there. They exist. None more infamous than the Star Wars prequels for love-hate relationship. But it's interesting because the horror genre has its own number of prequels. Oftentimes it's exploring the origins of a franchise's famous serial killer. Other times it's setting up maybe the dark thing that happened in the house or something. But prequels can be can oftentimes come later in the series, or sometimes they come right after the first one, but oftentimes they're not that good. So I wanted to for us to just discuss some of our favorites, some of our lucklusters, or just shout about Hannibal Rising for 20 minutes or so. But so horror prequels. What are some horror prequels? We don't need to list off like a giant list of them, but what are some horror prequels that stand out to you guys?
I'll take issue with one thing you said about how usually the prequels are inferior movies. There are two in recent memory where the prequels were actually better than the original, and that's Annabelle Creation, which was much better than Annabelle, and Ouija, Origin of Evil. You know, it's going to sound like I'm blowing Mike Flanagan here, but Origin of Evil...
we blow Mike Flanagan on a regular basis here.
Origin of Evil is a much better movie than Ouija, and I actually liked Ouija. I'm in the minority, but Ouija Origin of Evil is a better movie. So as far as prequels, just by definition being inferior films, I don't know that that's completely true because in the last 5 years, there's two examples right there.
And I would even say, not to discredit what you just said, that you're right in some ways. I find the better prequels generally don't focus on like the origins of a character. They focus on like something going on, because not only were those great prequels, I do like those films, especially since I didn't like the first ones very much. Like getting me back into watching a Ouija movie was very... took a lot of convincing of myself on that part. But even like I did not like the first Paranormal Activity. I was bored to death by it. But Paranormal Activity 2 I thought was a lot of fun. I thought it was great. But I love Paranormal Activity 3, which somehow was a prequel to the second one, which was a prequel to the original.
3 is the best in the series, in my opinion,
hands down.
And that's because I think the VHS aesthetic helps with that.
But it also hurts because it's not actual VHS, and that just like I respect it for sticking to it, but it's just every now and then like it just pops in my head. It's like, that's not real VHS, and then I have to tell myself to shut up. But anyways,
yeah. I'd have to say one of my favorite sequels that I'd seen, horror sequels or prequels, was Final Destination 5. It was really saying a lot because I'm not a big
spoiler alert.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you don't. Well, I mean, it's a few years old, but yeah, in case you don't
years, know, I think that's a decent time frame to talk about it. Because
actually, Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, did the same thing. It's a prequel to the first one, so we're spoiling. This is iHorror. We spoil shit.
Yeah.
Especially if it's been out for more than 5 years. I think we get a license on that.
If it's been out for more than 5 months, I think it's fair game with us.
But anyway, so Final Destination 5, because the thing is, like, I never was really a big fan of the Final Destination movies, but this one really drew me in. I saw it at a Part 5-a-thon. It was like all Part 5 horror movies. So it was interesting seeing this one because yeah, the thing, it sets itself up as just another Final Destination movie. It's just these dudes that work at this office go on a retreat, and one of them has a vision, so they dodge like a bridge accident, and they all start to get picked off one by one. But it's actually pretty inventive, and yeah, the big twist at the end is that it's a prequel to the first Final Destination movie, which isn't so much like a setup. It doesn't really, because that's what makes it so effective, like what you were talking about. It's not like, oh, this is how it all started. It's more just like a lead-in, I guess.
The Final Destination movies are as pure of a formula movie as you're going to find. It starts with this incredible set piece, where a bunch of people die except a handful escape, and then the rest of the movie trying to kill off those survivors. But Final Destination 5, it's when it gets to that moment at the end, which again, we're spoiling it, but when it gets to that moment at the end, it's almost like an aha, almost like the twist at the end of Split, where, that final scene, you're just like, you're almost laughing because it's so good. You're like, yes!
Oh, shit!
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a great payoff, and it's just so fun how it kind of ties it all together.
Yeah, and it is cool because there are a lot of really good horror prequels out there, but again, I have to harp on just that point where we're talking about, when we think about the good ones, it's not about the origins of a character. When you look at films like Hannibal Rising, you start to demystify, who this person of evil is. I mean, Hannibal Rising did way too much explaining. Hannibal, the TV series, I thought handled it pretty well, where they showed a little bit of it, where it's like, no, he kind of always was like this, but this just like put him over the edge to actually get to that point where he's okay with eating people and stuff like that. Or they showed like how he developed the ways that he does it. But then you get to stuff where it's like, I would even argue Rob Zombie's Halloween, even though it is a reboot, it's in its own timeline and everything. The first half of it's prequel, and it takes away everything that The Shape was. I mean, Mike Myers was The Shape. Without the sequels that over-explain everything, he was terrifying because it could happen anywhere.
The thing is, there are some characters who I don't think need prequels. Like Michael Myers is one of them. Yeah. I think all you need to know about Michael Myers was in the opening scene of the first Halloween and the few snippets of exposition that Loomis supplies. That's all you need to know.
Exposition,
the mystery's there.
All he does is go, he's pure evil. That's
the
literally
devil's
all
eyes.
That's all you need. But it's the same thing with Freddy Krueger. I guess there was an origin, episode of Freddy's Nightmares, but all you need to know about that character are the few sentences that Nancy's mom tells her,
right?
In the basement. All you need to know about Jason is what the mom gives away at the end of the first one. There are some characters I don't think who need prequels. I mean, do you really want to see a Jason prequel?
No.
It's him drowning at summer camp. Exactly.
And that's the thing too, is that what you're talking about there is sequels that expand on it, where they give a little bit of backstory. It's not an entire movie dedicated to it. It's not like showing Freddy Krueger like his mom being raped by all of them for an entire movie. It's just little
bastard
snippets.
Son of 1,000 maniacs.
Yeah, that's cool.
100 maniacs.
That's cool. We didn't need it, but it was cool, and that's what a good backstory is building it while you're still telling a forward story. But to dedicate an entire movie to it kind of takes away from it. Although I know we were joking about this earlier this week when I first propositioned this topic, and I would love a prequel to Gremlins where it's just Gizmo chilling in that weird shop, just hanging out and helping around. He'd probably sweep up the floor or something.
Totally.
I'd actually be kind of down for that.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be a loaf. He'd be running the register. He'd be, sweeping up, scrubbing the windows,
whistling,
cleaning the toilets. He's not. He'd be earning his keep.
Yeah. But ultimately, what they do is they take away from it. I mean, both Texas Chainsaw movies, the original and the remake, had a prequel, and it's like, all right, we get it. He comes from a fucked up family. We already saw that. All right, we don't need to see how when he was younger shit was fucked up, because we already knew it was fucked up. Psycho 4, hear me out, has some interesting moments with it, but at the end of the day, all it really was like, thank you for allowing Olivia Hussey to have another paycheck and just giving me the weirdest feelings. Leave it at that. Just weird feelings.
Now, what do you guys think about the Thing prequel?
Oh, I was actually going to bring that up.
Because I can tell you my feelings of the Thing prequel. I remember when it came out, people were like, is this a sequel? Is it a remake? Is it a prequel? Well, it's kind of like yes and yes, because it It is a prequel because it ends with the Morricone theme and the dog running off. But it's also a remake because the exact same things happen. But I think it's kind of illustrating how cyclical that is, because the thing is going to move from camp to camp, and that's what it's always going to be, the same thing. It's going to breed this mistrust and paranoia until it takes everything over, and then it moves on to the next.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess in its purest form, it is a prequel, but it's also kind of a remake.
But also, was that necessary? Like, we already knew that.
It wasn't necessary. It was a cash grab.
Like, John Carpenter's thing already illustrated that point that, oh shit, this thing happened at the last camp.
It has a new audience 30 years later. It was a cash grab, I think.
Yeah, I mean, controversial, but honestly, I kind of liked it.
Oh, I was totally fine with it. I thought it was a fine movie, but like you say, was it needed? No.
No, it wasn't really that necessary, but the guy who made it, his name escapes me, he did show a lot of love for it, though. Like, he was very meticulous in rebuilding the Norwegian camp and, kind of setting everything up, because, like, you had the dude who slit his wrists in the ice and, like the two-headed thing, and it did have some genuinely unsettling moments and some interesting kind of new body horrors with the thing. But, yeah, overall, it wasn't really that necessary, but it was kind of cool to have. Oh, and also because of that, I have a new winter jacket, because I actually worked on the Universal lot back in 2011, and I bought a bunch of winter gear from the movie at a prop sale.
Nice.
Wow. So I got got a jacket, and I got gloves and some stuff, and I got it cheap because some Norwegians died in it.
Oh, so some good came out of that movie being made. You're now warm in the winter.
Was your stuff screen used?
Yes. There was fake blood on it and stuff.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so that was pretty cool. The real unfortunate thing though is that they were originally going to do it like all special effects for like ADI and stuff, and then the studio stepped in and made them replace it with that crappy CG.
Yeah,
I think there are still some practical effects, and not nearly as many as they wanted.
Yeah.
But I think there is still some practical.
Yeah.
But not. Yeah, like you said, not nearly as. And from what I understand, the practical effects looked great.
Oh, it did.
So I'm not sure.
Like they released that test footage, and it looked awesome.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure why they stepped in and ruined that, but
studio interference.
Nah.
No. I will say this, one of my favorite prequels, and I really wish it had gotten it's another victim of studio attention, is Dominion, the prequel to The Exorcist. Like, Exorcist the beginning is bad. It's very bad. But it's the same movie, essentially. They just re-edited it and
they recut it,
finished it. But Dominion, which is, in a very big way, is an unfinished film. Like, the CG in it is horrendous. But overall, it actually does a good job of, like, expanding the mythology and telling an original story. And it wasn't just another, oh, look, yes, this priest has performed Exorcist before. There was some pretty disturbing shit in there. Like, when he's in the place with the kid that's possessed by Pazuzu and they're talking, it's some really good exposition there. And I wish that they had a bit more faith in that version, because Dominion's honestly, like, there's moments where it's really, like, pretty scary, and then all of a sudden it's followed up by terrible CGI wolves. But I mean, Dominion's fun, and actually I think even Exorcist the TV show, you could see a lot of kind of influence from Dominion in that it wasn't just a straight up like there's a person tied to a bed and we're going to exorcise them. They changed it up, especially second season, in showing that no, it's not always the most ideal closed off situations that we deal with here.
Another personal favorite of mine, just because it's kind of out of genre. Did either of you guys see Tremors 4?
No.
where it's a western?
I didn't make it to 4.
It's actually pretty fun. It takes place in the late 1800s, where Perfection is like a boom mining town, and Michael Gross plays his own ancestor so that he can still be in it, except he's totally against character because, like in the series, Burt Gummer is like this badass survivalist guy, but his ancestor is kind of like this hoity-toity aristocrat mining magnate guy who's like checking in on his investment because like miners are getting eaten. Oh, it's also cool because they even show the larval stage of the graboids when they're like these little worm monster things that like kind of jump out and like nab people. And he even hires like a gunslinger to try and kill the graboids, and They use a bunch of Civil War, post-Civil War era weaponry. So it's basically Tremors the Western, and it's pretty fun.
Is it actually like, it's not like an origin story prequel, it just happens to be a Tremors movie that takes place before the others, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it kind of is an origin that shows how the Gummer family line got set up there, and like I guess graboid slaying is in their blood or whatever. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like it doesn't really explain any more about where the graboids came from or what their deal is. It's just Western Tremors.
One of the cool prequels of also recent time is Insidious 3, where you get to see...
Oh, and 4.
Yeah, well, 3 is the one where you actually get to see where Elise gets hooked up with Specs and Tucker.
Right.
So that's kind of cool because you know that they work together by the time 1 and 2 have rolled around. So I always thought that was kind of fun, you know, because she's like, we got to get you guys some new clothes, you know? The little
uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. Now that you brought up the Tremors sequel, which again, I never got into Tremors. Sorry, Tremors fans. Again, I feel like that's going to happen every few episodes. But one horror sequel prequel that I really liked, From Dusk Till Dawn 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Hangman's Daughter. That one, it was a bit of an origin story for Esmeralda, Salma Hayek's character. And I thought that was interesting that because it wasn't really all about her. It was just like another From Dusk Till Dawn story. It fell more in line with the original. It just happened to take place in 1913. So it was like a Western. And I thought it was a lot more fun, especially in comparison to From Dusk Till Dawn 2, which just...
Texas Blood Money.
Yeah, that one didn't sit well with me for a lot of reasons, but I also haven't seen those films in a decade, so I need to rewatch them. But the third one's a lot of fun because it's From Dusk Till Dawn, but in a Western setting.
We had talked a little earlier about movies that we don't think need prequels. What are some that you would like to see a prequel? I know that we were going forth about Amityville 2. About whether it's a prequel or not.
Oh.
And I swear to God it is not a prequel, but I've actually eaten that words because I looked up on IMDb and it does take place before the events of the first. But it's also not the DeFeo family, because I would love to see a movie about the DeFeo family and the murders that led up to the Amityville Horror. Well, it's a different family. But I think we determined that it was a family between the DeFeos and the Lutzes, that their son gets possessed by the DeFeo spirit and kills his family in the same way. So it's a very similar thing. But I could have sworn, and I haven't seen it in probably decades. That's another thing I determined during that discussion. I need to go back and rewatch it because I haven't seen it. But I swear they make references to things in the first movie that happened. So if it's set before, they wouldn't have happened. But I also might be getting 2 mixed up with 3. But that is, I guess that's the closest to an Amityville prequel as I'm going to get. I would love to see a movie about the DeFeo murders. And I guess that is kind of a movie about the DeFeo murders, although they're not called the DeFeos because the DeFeo guy possessed the dude who killed his family in the same way. So basically the Lutzes were moving into a house that was the scene of 2 mass murders. At that point, why did they not run screaming? I mean, that's like going right into Demonwood.
And I think that would be interesting, seeing like a Shining-esque Amityville movie, you know, where it's like the father going crazy, possession and all that. I think that would be kind of interesting. I don't see why you couldn't do something like that. And I mean, fuck, dude, how many Amityville movies are there? I think we counted them one time.
I think there were 19.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So someone has to have made one or is going to make one. I'm sure.
I'm wondering if maybe there's a problem with using the DeFeo name, and that might be why Amityville 2, maybe that's why they made Amityville 2 The Possession, and they couldn't actually say this is what happened with the DeFeo. I wonder if there's some, because the DeFeo murders were a real event.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about the Amityville horror mythology that legitimately happened is this guy killed his family. So there may be legalities about using that name. So maybe instead of making a true prequel, they had to make up a fake family that just got possessed and did it.
Yeah, plus 2 really embellished a lot of stuff and did a lot of weird stuff that didn't really have much to do with like anything related to Amityville. Because like what? Yeah, because like there was that whole like what, wasn't there like some kind of incest thing.
I don't know. I haven't seen it in decades, like I said. And I think that I get 2 and 3 mixed up. So I need to go back and I obviously don't have the Scream Factory triple set that...
Come on over. I got it. I haven't watched any.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a single
Let's have a marathon.
Amityville movie ever, so we can marathon the first 3 at least.
You haven't even seen the first? The first one is awesome. The first one is great. They get spotty literally right after that. I mean, 2 is not a great movie. The first one I think is really good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's classic.
The Margot Kidder, James Brolin one, not the... was it
Ryan Reynolds,
Melissa George and Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, the Platinum Dunes remake.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard that one wasn't terrible, but
Yeah, it had its moments.
It's just unnecessary. That's actually what you were saying. You want to see an Amityville-esque The Shining kind of movie. That's kind of what the remake is, a little bit. It's nowhere near as accomplished as The Shining, but that's kind of what you get there.
Okay. So what is, like, I'll get it back to your question earlier. We got, so Amityville, what are some other prequels that you guys absolutely, like, would want to see?
Would anybody want to see a Child's Play movie from before he got put into the doll?
No.
Like, just would that just be like a crime script? Would that be Badlands?
I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't it just be like a criminal who occasionally fucks with black magic, basically?
Yeah, that's why I'm seriously asking. I don't know if that would be anything special, but it's kind of an interesting character once he becomes the doll, but I don't know that he would be before that.
Yeah. Okay, I got one. How about a prequel to Reanimator about young Dr. West?
His time in Europe? Like, what the fuck were they doing there? Because you know that him trying to resurrect his mentor was not the first time they fucked with it. You know?
Yeah, and also, like, how did he get out of prison?
Yeah. I'd be... First of all, I'm down for any new Reanimator movie. I don't give a shit if it's a sequel, prequel, remake. I want more Reanimator in my life.
I'm with you, man.
I'm down. I wish Stuart Gordon had made his George Bush Reanimator movie.
Oh, my God. Yeah, without going too deep into it, honestly, I think it'd be a better time for it than ever. But I think a prequel to Reanimator would be pretty neat. You know, watch it. It'd be kind of like Hannibal. You know, watching him kind of rise to the Dr. West that we know, and like his obsession with death and revival. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he was doing, messing around in Europe.
And see a lot of failed experiments, ones that don't fully reanimate. You can get into some really fucked up body horror with that.
Oh, yeah.
My biggest gripe with prequels is, and I'm going to use a non-horror example kind of with this and kind of relate it to, I'll bring it back, don't worry. Han Solo. I mean, that's like the perfect of some issues with prequels is a lot of times with these we're presented with this interesting character who has a lot of interesting stuff about them, a lot of backstory that's mystified, little things like Jason. Who is this? He was a kid. He was deformed, but we don't know his full life. We know little snippets. Freddy, he was a pedo, and later on we learned man of a bastard son of 100 maniacs, all that fun jazz. But when you actually see like a 2 hour playing it out, they humanize it a bit too much, or they do something like Han Solo, where it's like, hey, all these cool things that you knew about this character happened all at once in one adventure. And then it's like, okay, so their life wasn't that interesting. They just had one really epic week and like have been writing all that week for life. It's like that one fraternity bro who will not stop talking about that one spring break,
He met his best friend. He won his ship and he made the Kessel Run all before dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at least space it out. But there are some that I think would make pretty interesting. I mean, honestly, as much as I hated the few interesting aspects of the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot was the fact that they did explore his past a little bit more. And I thought that was a bit interesting. And I even loved it was Tobe Hooper directed first episode of Freddy's Nightmares.
Oh yeah, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, that was a cool episode because you got to see that he was always a bastard. And I think Freddy could pull off with that. We could pull off a good prequel. It just still wouldn't be a Nightmare on Elm Street because in order for it to be a prequel, you kind of have to end it with him becoming the Dream Demon. And Freddy before that was just he was a serial killer pedo, and that's not as interesting as a man who can manipulate you in your dreams. So as cool as it would be to see that, it wouldn't be as interesting because he couldn't do all the cool shit he does after he becomes the Dream Demon,
Yeah, No, I get that.
And that's why I'm honestly, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, I'm kind of glad that they didn't go forward with that Friday the 13th prequel that was going to be set in the 80s, because did we need that? Did we need another origin movie where we see this person, this child getting beaten or have a rough childhood and then die? To become Jason, you know?
Yeah, I don't think we need a Jason prequel because we know all we need to know. He was bullied and he drowned. Unless they're going to inject some other bit of story into the mythology, we know all we need to know about Jason.
I would like to see a new Jason movie where they explore the aspect that they show in Freddy versus Jason versus Ash of Jason's mom using the Necronomicon to resurrect him. I'd like to see that because I think that's really cool.
And the director of Jason Goes to Hell even said, like, he kind of implied that, right?
Yeah, there were implications because they did have the Necronomicon in that, but the Necronomicon was also one of those props that popped up a lot in the 80s. I think it was just because Sam Raimi and all of them thought it was a funny joke.
You're talking about a movie that ended with Freddy Krueger pulling a Jason mask down to hell. So it's no surprise that the Necronomicon showed up in Jason Goes to Hell. You know, I don't know that you could put two and two. I don't know that anybody else would put two and two together and say, oh, that's why Jason's alive and demonic, you know.
I'm about to address that. Because in Jason Goes to Hell, you do see the Necronomicon and dagger from the Evil Dead movies in one of the scenes. So they already established that they take place in the same universe there. And then, of course, it ends with Freddy's glove grabbing the mask. And in Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, the comic book follow-up, they do explore the fact that, yes, that's how Jason came back, was because his mom took the Necronomicon and brought him back. And it was actually Pumpkinhead 2, The Blood Wings, where you see the Necronomicon in the old witch's cabin as well.
Necronomicon gets around.
Oh, dude. It gets around. But I think that would be an interesting thing to explore more so is Mrs. Voorhees maybe open it up with Jason dying and then her going through that and then kind of like have it be a soft reboot where it's her going through the turmoil of losing her kid and then trying to fuck with the Necronomicon and then just losing it and killing a bunch of counselors.
Now we're turning into Bobby from Dead of Night.
Yeah, I was going to say that that actually would be a pretty interesting concept because it'd be like a Pet Cemetery thing where she's trying to use dark magic to bring back her child, and and like the other theory being that like her death is what resurrected him from being undead or something.
Which it wouldn't be a surprise because think about it. You're fucking with dark magic, and I mean it's like what John Landis said about vampires. You can write whatever rules you want because they don't exist. Necronomicon doesn't exist, but you can say like she started the ritual, but she fucked up because there was no blood sacrifice. So when she had her head chopped off at the end of part 1, that was the final sacrifice needed to bring back Jason. And he came back as this giant Deadeye hybrid badass motherfucker, you know?
And then when he was killed and brought back again with that lightning, it made him even more powerful.
Yeah.
What else we got prequel-wise?
There was one big one I wanted to talk about because it's such a big franchise now. Ridley Scott's Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one was all over the place because at first it was like, oh, it's a prequel, it's not a prequel, maybe it is, but then it was. And, I mean, it did some interesting stuff, and I mean, I did like a lot of the ideas. Yeah, I don't know.
Prometheus was one of those like philosophically horrifying movies where it's like you look at the creation not only of the xenomorphs but of man itself.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of it's a prequel to everything. Covenant is kind of like the middle ground between Prometheus and Alien, sort of, you know, it ties the threads together, for me at least.
And I do think it's interesting how he's kind of tying everything in with the character of David, the android.
Oh yeah, and Walter.
Yeah, and Walter. The Wayland android series. Just because it's like a creation of a creation, because engineers make man makes androids, android kills man, and women inherit the earth.
Yeah. Hashtag feminism.
Yeah, bringing it back to Laura Dern.
But always. But and that's the thing. I know I'm not in the majority of this, but I love the Prometheus movies, and I love them too. Alien Covenant as a Prometheus movie more than an Alien movie. Yeah, they have their faults. Of course, we can talk all day about the dumb scientists, all that fun jazz. But at the end of the day, I love how Prometheus really got into some Lovecraftian themes, where, like you said, it's the philosophical horror of it all, and I especially love the idea of our creator hating us. I think that is probably one of the best things that movie presented was, we were created by other beings and they fucking hate us.
Yeah.
Like the second that engineer is woken up, he goes, "Oh fuck, I'm surrounded by these cunts," and then just start killing them left and right. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's not that I don't. It's not that I hate the Prometheus movies. I think it's like I also need to revisit them. It's been a while, but they're definitely flawed. But I mean, I am happy they're around, because they do bring up a lot of interesting ideas. A lot of great performances too. Like both movies had really great ensemble casts.
Yeah, Danny McBride was awesome.
Oh God, yeah, and I love Michael Fassbender as David because he is just goddamn chilling. Because, he seems all amicable and stuff, and he's watching Lawrence of Arabia, and just, you don't know what the hell he's planning.
Just that scene where he's dyeing his hair, there's just so much to that performance and just how it's shot, and it's just so, there's so many layers to it, you can understand what he's doing, but you're also, terrified but curious, and they do interesting stuff with it, that's for certain.
Oh yeah, and I hear they're going to do a third one to kind of make it like a new trilogy, so be interesting to see where it goes, especially after Covenant.
I'm always down for a new Alien movie.
The original Alien wasn't a trilogy; it was a quadrilogy.
Right.
So are they going to do 4? I don't know. But no, like Korea, I'm always down for more Alien movies. I mean, even a bad Alien movie is pretty good, and I mean, Alien movies are like pizza. Even when they're bad, they're still pretty good.
And then you get to the dominoes of Alien movies, which is Alien versus Predator. It's like, that does sound like a good idea, and then you get it, and then it's in front of you, and then you start, watching it or eating it, and then the shame starts settling in. Should be drunk for it.
I will give Alien Covenant credit that it was pretty cool. With kind of the menagerie of monsters it had, because it had the weird fungus spreading thing, and the backburster, and the weird albino morph, and just it was pretty fascinating.
Any other prequels that we want to see, or do we want to wrap it up?
Well, okay, actually, I should bring this up because mostly hypothetical, but the Bubba Hotep prequel that they kept on talking about, Bubba Nosferatu, Curse of the She-Vampires, because Coscarelli kept on trying to get that one going, but doesn't seem like it's ever going to be on film. But Joe R. Lansdale, I think, is doing a comic version of it, or he's doing kind of a comic spin on it right now. And in terms of hypotheticals going off of Coscarelli, how would you guys feel about a Phantasm prequel? Because I was just kind of thinking back, there's that whole thing where the tall man has been in Morningside Cemetery for a long, long time, and they do kind of touch upon his origins. So I don't know, just maybe if they brought up another time that the tall man was raiding the town of corpses or something.
Part of what makes the tall man such a cool villain is the mystery behind him. So I don't know if
not going into his origin, as we discussed, going into a monster or character's origin isn't really that satisfying. So I'm thinking more just the tall man in a different time period, because they've shown that he's been doing his whole deal in Morningside Cemetery for God knows how long.
Let's wrap up here, but one more prequel / remake that we're going to mention. What do you guys think of Red Dragon? Because it's kind of a remake of Manhunter. Actually, it's very much a remake of Manhunter.
Same story.
Yeah, based on the same book.
And a prequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Honestly, I'm a huge Hannibal fan. I've read all the books, watched all the movies, TV show, anything Hannibal related I've consumed. And there's bits in Red Dragon that I really like, and there's a lot that I don't. And just the fact that it has Brett Ratner's name on it makes me want to hate the ever-living fuck out of that movie. But I hate that it's presented as a prequel, because it's not a prequel. It's the first book. They already made a movie, as you said, Manhunter, which is absolutely brilliant. Michael Mann killed it with that in a very 80s way. It's probably the most 80s of the franchise. But as a prequel, no. But as a Hannibal, the story's brilliant. But I think if you were to ask me which is better, Red Dragon or Manhunter, I'm going to go with Manhunter every time.
But you know what Red Dragon has that Manhunter doesn't? Anthony Hopkins.
That is true.
But I would argue, though, that Brian Cox holds his weight.
He really does.
Don't get me wrong. Anthony Hopkins will always be the Hannibal Lecter.
He is Hannibal Lecter,
Mads Mikkelsen also is the Hannibal, but I would also argue Brian Cox is the Hannibal. He not only was the first Hannibal, but he brought his own type of energy and craziness to it, and it's brilliant. Like, honestly, it's one of Brian Cox's best acting. I'd say next to Red, maybe.
Oh no, he's so scary in Manhunter, and he doesn't even kill anybody in that movie. He's just like a presence. Like, and he isn't even in that much. It's like, but just he killed it in every scene he did. Like in that bit where he's talking about, like God, like kills his followers in like the two fairy killers trying to be like God because God kills. Like that whole thing is just so disturbing.
And William Peterson is a much better Will Graham than Edward Norton. I think Edward Norton is probably the worst Will Graham out there. Honestly, though, if you were to compare Tooth Fairies between Hannibal the TV show, Manhunter, and Red Dragon, they're all great. I can't say a negative thing about any of them.
All right, let's wrap this up. Have we covered prequels?
Yep. Yeah, we've covered the hell out of them.
So we've listed some good, we've listed some bad, we listed some wants, we listed some definitely do not wants.
Yeah.
Joe Dante, if you're out there, please make that Gremlins prequel, please.
All right, let's get out of here. Our theme music, as always, DMP, Death Metal Pope, so go rock with them. And our artwork, as always, Chris Fisher. So go and check out his art. For me, James J. Edwards, you can find me on the Twitters at Cinemafirite. That's F-E-A-R-I-T-E, like verite, but with fear, because I'm fearsome. Where can we find you guys? Jacob.
Okay, this is Jacob Davison. You can find me on Twitter at Jacob Davison _ that is at JACOBDAVISON _.
And you can find me on Twitters at Korean Barbecue. That's CORREIAN BBQ. You can also find us on Stardust app, where we give little short reviews of new releases, old releases, and everything in between. And don't forget to also check out iHorror.com, because that's where we're from, and check out their Twitter handle, iHorror News, to stay up to date. And we're doing a lot more on our Facebook page, aren't we, guys?
We sure are.
Trying to.
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of any of us or just see what any of us are up to, there's an Eye on Horror Facebook page. So go click like on that, and you'll see videos of Korea playing the Friday the 13th NES game and other little things that I have a feeling that we're going to get a lot more videos out of him in the coming months.
I mean, yeah, especially now that I have Friday the 13th for my NES, I'm definitely going to be posting because I don't know what the fuck Twitch is, so I'm not doing that. But I will be posting, hopefully soon, me playing that game, because I tried playing it the other day, and guys, it's terrible. But you gotta witness it to really understand how bad it is. So, and hey, maybe someday I'll get back into playing the new Friday the 13th game, and I'll face any of you fans out there, which, let's be honest, that'll just be an easy stats gain for you guys, because I'm terrible at online games.
All right, well, let's get the hell out of here. I'm James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
And I'm Jonathan Correa.
Keep your eye on horror.